Tonight, I'll be talking to Susan Barrett about curating and collecting art. By the end of our conversation, I hope that you'll be inspired to rethink the role of art in your life and in your home. We are recording this event, so you will receive an email with a link about how you can rewatch the presentation. You'll also have an opportunity to ask Susan questions at the end of our conversation. Please submit those via the chat function. And lastly, one person attending this evening will win a happy hour for 4 at Guest House, complete with wine, cheese, and a private tour. Susan Barrett is president of Barrett Barrera and the founder of 3 distinct art spaces in the Central West End: Projects Plus Gallery, Projects Plus Exhibitions, and since 2019, Guest House, an arts club where visiting artists can stay and where Barrett Barrera can host events. Susan has nearly 20 years experience working in the arts. Before founding her gallery, she was executive director of the World Chess Hall of Fame, which relocated to St. Louis under her leadership. During her tenure, Susan curated the wildly successful exhibit, A Queen Within, that melded fashion and chess. Long before the hit Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit, Susan was bringing attention to the game and to St. Louis as a capital of chess competition. In addition, she has amassed one of the largest collections of garments by fashion designer Alexander McQueen. Susan grew up in St. Louis and has a degree in architecture from Washington University. I'm so excited that she's joining me today. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. So good to be here with you.
So nice to see you. I'd like to start by asking you about your own art collection. When did you start collecting art and what inspired you?
I've always collected art because I've always drawn art and I've always understood art as just part of my life. So I've been drawing art, I've been selling my own art, and I've been collecting my friends' art since I can remember. I think the first major thing that I bought that, I really had to stretch and really had to budget for was a Lynette Waikambochi. And that was about 10 years ago before she made it really big. And I just gravitated towards her work, and the rest is history.
Your collections tend to center around the work of women and artists of color. How important is it for collectors, new collectors, to focus on an idea or a theme or a particular period or style?
I think it depends on how you want to live with your art. So you can obviously create a home and put what you enjoy on the wall, whether it's a collection of posters or jewelry or however you want to live with it. If you want to start collecting art and you want to start collecting it intentionally with the sort of goal of creating a collection, then it is really important to start to focus and to do research and to learn about it. I happen to gravitate towards artists who are minorities and women because they need support. And Marilyn Minter, who is a famous woman artist, said one time that if we want to see more women artists in museums, we have to collect women artists and women have to start collecting. And that always resonated with me. So I take it very seriously.
Some collectors collect a variety of artists while others collect fewer artists, but more of their works. What is your opinion about those two styles of collecting?
So I tend to go deep. If I like an artist, I tend to be a little obsessive about finding exactly, what it is that I want, but same with clothes, right? So McQueen, I wonder what other McQueens are out there, but I think there's a couple things you can do. If you want to start collecting a genre, which means like a time period or a certain type, then you may want to have representation across the board. And within that, I think it's okay to, delve really deep into one or two artists, but you need to have context, I think, in order to place them within a certain entity. But I think, you know, I learned so much about living with my art because I have several works from a couple different artists, and to see their growth and the process is a privilege. It's like being invited into their thought process.
I love that. I love that. So, where would you suggest that people start their journey? Is it a gallery? Is it through books? Is it consulting with friends who are perhaps collectors? What would you suggest?
Well, clearly they need to come to Projects Plus Gallery because that is the only place to start. But no, I think it's really about training your eye. And there's nothing mysterious about collecting art. There's nothing mysterious about learning about art. It's really training your eye and noticing what you're gravitating towards, whether that's on Pinterest. I mean, that's a great place to start figuring out what your ideas are and, what you tend to see in them, or going to museums. The more exposure you have to art, the more you're going to understand what it is that you like. And you may not have the words for it, but you may gravitate towards like color. And you may gravitate, I know this one collector in New York who only collects images of hands. They're photographs, sculpture, and photography. And it's all fine. It's all doable. It's really what speaks to you, and only you know that. So I think it's important to listen to what you are gravitating towards.
I'd love to dispel a little bit of the mystery of what happens when someone walks into a gallery, right? I think sometimes there's this idea that not everyone can walk into a gallery, or there's an intimidation factor. What happens when someone just opens the door and walks in?
Well, we have our bouncer and we decide whether they should come in or not. And then we're all in the back deciding if they should be. No, of course, everyone should feel comfortable about walking into a gallery. Just like everyone should feel comfortable about walking into the art museum or any art museum. In St. Louis, we're really lucky because these institutions are free and they're arts. And so you should feel comfortable going in there and comfortable asking questions. The gallery is no more than, a store for art. And walk in there, ask questions. The more you ask, the more engaged you'll become. And we want to engage with you if you want us to. But I think for us, the more we can talk about art and the more we can share our, love of art, the happier we'll be, the happier you'll be. And we want you to feel comfortable and come in. So, you know, come on in.
How important is it for collectors to know what they're buying before making that investment? Is it enough to just really love a piece of art?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the first thing is you have to love it, right? Or because you're going to live with it. It depends on what you want to do with this collection. So, the first thing I tell people who are starting a collection is, what is the goal? So, if the goal is to establish a museum ready collection, then we start with that. If the goal is to hang, decorate the house, we start with that. If the goal is to like learn more and train your eye, we start with that. If the goal is a financial goal, we can talk that language too. So because there's so much, it's like saying, what's your goal when you go shopping for clothes? Well, what are you buying? What are you buying it for? Is it for fun? Is it for a formal occasion? It's true with art. So it's okay also to say you're not sure yet.
Mhm, mhm.
Or, if I'm going to make this investment, I need it to, I need it not to be just because I like it. I need it to also maintain its value or increase in value.
So how expensive is it to collect art? I mean,
Oh,
I think that that's obviously there's a range. Does art need to be expensive to be collectible?
oh, you know the answer to this. Come on now. No, art does not have to be expensive to be collectible. Art is, again, art is pretty much everywhere. You can go to local art fairs. You can support your local artists, which is very, very important. You can talk to them. You can learn about their process. But you can also mix that with something that you've been saving up for a long time. But you start somewhere. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters how you're going to live with it and how you want that to enhance your life. So, like for me, the goal is to get people excited about art, not so much to start a collection, which, if you get hooked, you're hooked. And so you'll naturally start a collection. But for me, it's like, how else can that enhance your life? How can you start understanding about who's speaking in town? What art fairs can you go to? What are the shows that are coming up? How do you get involved with your local institutions? And then that becomes its own reward. And that becomes something that can naturally lead to collecting. So it's not necessarily a goal in and of itself to collect. I think the goal is to be excited, to learn a completely new language if it's not new to you, and to feel a part of it. It's enhancing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm curious to know what you think your art collection has taught you about yourself.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't remember that, Veronica. That's good. I will say, I mean, the honest to God truth is I went to art school. So I have a bachelor's in painting. And I showed before, I would never ever sell my artwork. I just never would for whatever reason. And so then later, as I got back into, gallery and sales, and when I was able to start collecting work that I'd have to save up for, I always gravitated to the work that I wish I could do. So I gravitate towards painters, like a painter's painter, like Lynette Wycombe-Boji. I gravitate towards Chantal Jaffe, who is an amazing painter from London who does these personal scenes. So I gravitate towards those painters who I like somehow aspire to. And in living with them, it's such a privilege because I am taking in like the formal understanding of it every day in a different way. And so the goal is someday to be able to get back to, painting. And I know that living with and seeing these artworks in such a different way that it becomes part of, they're my friends, they're part of my decor, it's part of my home, that will inform my painting for better or worse. But, I think that's what I personally tend to do, but it took a long time before I could admit that.
I love that. Well, I would love to turn to the guest house where where you are right now. Um, what were you hoping to achieve with guest house?
I was hoping to get it done on time. Basically, is the short answer. The long answer is we wanted to provide a space for our guests. We have a lot of artists and curators and, just guests that come in from really around the world. And we wanted to give them a curated experience of St. Louis, which it might be the first time for a lot of people to know St. Louis. We wanted it to be close to the gallery because they're working with us usually in the gallery. But we also wanted to have fun and be sort of irreverent and push boundaries. So I called my friend Jimmy Jameson, and I said, look, we need to do something that is completely irreverent, that is something that probably doesn't look like anyone's house, and that looks like it might not be able to hold, contemporary art. Because if we can show that contemporary art goes, mixes with antiques and mixes with, patterned wallpaper and crazy colors, maybe people will think that it'll be okay in their decor too. So we really, really like sort of pushed boundaries and had a great time, like, just sort of bouncing off each other in terms of, oh my God, let's do this. This would be so crazy if we put this, antique piece next to this contemporary piece next to, just start to have a conversation and really have fun with it. Because again, your environment, including art, including decor, including what you wear, should be a reflection of not only who you are, but who you want to be. So, we had a blast doing it. And I hope it shows,
It does
like
show.
people walk in, it's like, where's the music? Where's the cocktail? Let's go.
Yes, absolutely. And this is the parlor, correct? What we're showing on the screen.
Yeah. So this is the parlor. This is when you walk in, and it's a great space because it's sort of like a double heighted space or a space and a half. So there's a lot of volume, and it can hold a lot of stuff. So for Jimmy, it was very important to have a lot of wallpaper. And for me, it was important to put a lot of chandeliers. And, they were very funny conversations, because sometimes it was, oh, you cannot fit one more chandelier. And it would be me. I'd say, watch me. We can and we will. But it's a lot of fun. So this has sort of a wow factor when you walk in, um, mostly because of the colors and the textures of the mixed patterns, and it's a pretty good Kahinda Wiley painting too. So that's nice.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm curious to know if we could turn to the second slide. So this slide shows obviously the historic nature of the building that you're in with the wood paneling. I'm wondering what the art in this room is saying.
Well, this particular picture is pretty funny because it's not saying a whole lot, but this is very funny because it's a building that in the early 20th century was really common. So you would have sort of the retail space on the bottom, and then you would live above. And this is the part that is the foyer to sort of the living area. I One thing that is so fascinating is when you walk up to this, which is sort of the second floor, people have no idea that there's really like this like little mini mansion, right on top of this what would be store. So there's of course the a most amazing historically redone. We didn't do any of that. Beautiful detailed work because the people before us like painstakingly redid the entire house. And then there's a collection of very traditional portraits, very sort of, gilded frames with, men who are somehow, I guess, distinguished in some way. And we thought it would be fun to sort of mix that up a little bit and put contemporary women in there to have sort of a conversation, but also to sort of say, like, that is a traditional power position, right? To be in these paintings, and we wanted to really mess with it. So we put in, Cindy Sherman, who this is one of her, irreverent pieces of her being like overly tanned. And we have some other works, including, we have Hank Willis Thomas, who has a sort of Confederate flag with, with two different, with hands that are sort of shaking a black skin and a white skin. And so we have these sort of irreverence that's going the stairs and kind of messing with the, ye old boys club. And that was a lot of fun.
I'm curious, did you buy the art specifically for Guest House, or are they works that are part of your collection or at the gallery?
Um, I never buy anything specifically for anything, including clothes. I mean, like, no, I buy things and then I have to make up occasions, even if it's just on Zoom, to wear the clothes. And which is what I was, sort of joking about earlier. I'm like, I had to pull this out because it's gone nowhere. All like none of us have for like over a year.
Right.
No, I buy the art first. I never know where it's going to go. It does. I never measure, because it's about the art, and really, um, the art, shouldn't be dictated by what's happening in the room, because the room can change and will change. If anyone is like me at all, the room changes every time. There's every new season. It's like, let's figure this out. But the art stays, and the art is a much more endurable, long lasting, and more serious sort of anchor. So no, I have the art. Some of the artwork, most of the artwork is mine personally.
Mhm. Okay.
Sometimes you may be able to convince me to sell it, but that'll take a couple Campari and sodas.
All right, that's awesome. To the
Just in
next
case
slide.
you want something.
Susan, I am just so curious as someone who, looks at a lot of furniture and decor. I would just love to know, where do you buy your furniture?
Um, Good question. Mostly mostly antique shops, estate sales, online. I tend to be a person that loves the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever gone into a furniture store and bought anything. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've never done that. But if you give me an estate sale, or give me a flea market or something, I'm happy as can be. And that's my favorite place to find things. Um, some of the, in this room, the two orange chairs were
Mhm.
found at an estate sale. And then there's a couch over to the side, not the blue couch, which I found online, but over to the side is a beautiful sort of mid-century couch, that was curved and had the back sort of table that went with it,
Oh,
very early 60s. And we used that, but we covered part of it so it would be a little more contemporary.
wonderful. I just love it. I love it. And I love the way you've worked with color as well. Paint color. I
There-
mean, you
there's
are
a
bold,
color.
fearless.
Well, also, I mean, it was really a fun conversation between me and Jimmy. And I will say, like, he and I were usually spot on in terms of, we would do okay, here are the three blues, and we would always pick the same blue. I mean, we might have like arm wrestled over one or two, but for the most part, we were really spot on in terms of what we both liked. And we also did the project very quickly, within 6 weeks, including
Oh, that's incredible.
every ceiling painted, every wall painted. I mean, all the curtains removed, all the furniture, the kind of easy fun stuff. But we were climbing over, painters who were, Jimmy gave them these recipes for the paint, and it would be like, okay, now it's 50%, gold berry, and then 50%. I mean, it was these crazy colors. Or it would be, now bring it down. We need 72% of this, turquoise. And it was hysterical because by the end, the painter is like, no, 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 that's 72% not the 73. So a lot of good education in terms of color theory came out
Yeah.
of
And someone is asking for Jimmy's last name, and so that's Jimmy Jameson.
Jameson, yes.
And to the next slide, please. And
Oh,
so
my favorite room.
is this your favorite room?
Of course. This is my favorite room. This is my favorite room because the cabinet was already there. So the cabinet was already there. This was an antique shop, and the owners lived above, and so the cabinet was already there, and it would showcase this beautiful antique china and dishes, and I always thought that's the bar. That's going to be the bar. So that was the first piece that dictated the rest of the project to me.
Wow.
And it was also sort of the lighting and it's very difficult to photograph because it works best when it's sort of dark. The back of the chairs are gold, but because it has this sort of orange kind of space, they all come across as copper, and we use a lot of candles and things. So it's always this kind of gold shimmery room. And it really pops the liquor bottles, which is such a beautiful, like it looks so beautiful to have, you know, these bottles with these different colored glasses that are backlit. And it's fun to drink the liquor too, but aesthetically it's always so pretty to see that, you know, shiny kind of fantasy world. And so this, to me, this has always been the space after, you know, we were working pretty much 24/7 because we went so fast, and we would always sort of say like, okay, we're gonna have a cocktail. Just imagine having a cocktail at the bar, and that's what would get us through. We're like, okay, what are you gonna have? What are you gonna have? So,
And I also love the way that you have displayed the art in the room, right? Like some pieces are hanging, but others are just leaning up against the wall. Do you have any tips for how to place art, or again, are you just letting the art sort of tell you
yeah,
how it should be placed in a room?
I mean, again, there's really no rules. So, but because there was, I mean, we had lifted the china cabinet a little bit because it was a little too low. But there was still this empty space, and it's begging for something, and it's begging for something interesting. So, I mean, there's no need to hang art up there. You just, you know, lean it against. It's perfectly appropriate way to look at your favorite hip hop artists. And you know, I really think it's however you're most comfortable, right? However you're most comfortable. And, you know, for example, if you have kids at home, you may not want to lean a painting against a wall if your kid is into drawing on walls or something. But for the most part, it's really, you know, let the art dictate where you want to put it.
Cool. Next slide. Oh, this is such a pretty room. Tell me a little bit about this particular space, Susan.
Well,
What are some of your favorite pieces in here?
well, this, you know, this space I really particularly am proud of because this was one that I got to choose the colors. So
Oh,
I'm very proud of that since Jimmy's the expert. But I really wanted this space to be very feminine and but with a little bit of heft. So having the sort of really light pink not be so saccharine and so sweet, you know, really, it really has a nice kind of weight to it with this really bright orange, which you'd think would be horrible. Like you look at the two colors together and it's like, maybe. But because it's on the ceiling, it really creates a really lovely, warm, sort of rose, you know, rose colored, especially when it's dark, when your lights are on. One thing that's really important to me is lighting, and when are you using the rooms. So for me, dining rooms are used at night, and there's a whole different mood for that. I want shimmery, I want it to be warm, I want it, there's a lot of, you want people to stay longer and talk, and it's good if you look good, and
Right.
but people look good in a pink room with a warm ceiling. So this room to me is very kind of Venice.
Love it. And I just I love the fabric that you chose for the dining chairs.
Thank you. I didn't choose them, I have those, and I just reused them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think we have one more. Love it.
So this is kind of fun because this is in a lower floor. We did build out 2 bathrooms because we have one little bathroom. There's a secret room in this main room, but it's like behind a hidden door, and then there's 2 steps down, and it says nothing but potential catastrophe. So we did like build out in this floor right off of the main floor. And outside, we wanted to have sort of this like, all right, luxurious kind of lounge. Like, what would a lounge look like if you could do anything you wanted? And we decided, this was Jimmy's idea. And he was like, let's put a bunch of mirrors and we can have sort of this Versailles, nod to Versailles. But then he started tilting them and putting them sideways and upside down, and much to the chagrin of our mirror hangers. And they're like, no. And Jim's like, spin it, 45 degrees. And it looks great. It's irreverent, it's playful, it's fun. We just wanted to have fun with it.
And I love the artwork. Can you tell us just a little bit about the black and white there?
Yes, that is artist photographer Dario Calmes, who is from St. Louis originally, but has been in Harlem for the last 20-ish years. And we did a show of his with this woman who is the model in the photograph, Lana Turner, not the one that we all remember, but this is a Lana Turner that he met in church. And Miss Turner is, I think she's over 70, and she has the most amazing vintage clothing collection and dresses to the nines. I mean, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. It's a complete art form. So they met in church. He started photographing her and they became friends. And so we brought them both in for an exhibit. And since then, which was several years ago, it was really one of the most lovely shows about friendship and about coming back home and about his family here at home. And he was sort of a big deal to us then, but now he's a big deal everywhere, because since then he's been the first African American photographer to photograph the cover for Vanity Fair. He is now teaching at Parsons. I mean, there's nothing that he's not touching. So it's sort of like, I used to get you a lot faster on text. What's going on? He's like,
That's wonderful, Susan. So I think now we are going to open it up to questions from our audience. And we have quite a few.
I bet.
Let's see. Is Guest House available to people other than artists and curators?
Maybe. I mean, the short answer is I'm not sure. Usually what we've done is we've kept it for our own VIPs and our own artists. And we have hosted artists who are in from out of town for some of the museums too.
Are you planning on collecting any other designers like McQueen? And so who?
I hope not. Or someone like much, like who didn't have as long a career. No, but but I will say that we are collecting a lot of clothes, not necessarily from one designer, but we do have a lot of clothes and accessories from historically hip hop, from Dapper Dan, and from the 70s and 80s too.
Can you talk a little bit about the DeGournay wallpaper?
Who asked that question? Is that Jimmy? It's Tanya. Is it Tanya?
I can't tell.
Okay. What would you like to know? This is this is DeGournay wallpaper that Jimmy insisted on, and it is absolutely stunning. It is beautiful. Our project took, I don't know, what was it, like 6 weeks in total. The wallpaper took about 6 or 8 months. So the wallpaper took way longer to do because it's all hand painted in Paris. There's a huge history of, craft and just the old school beauty of it. And each project is done especially for you, but we didn't have time for that initially. So we had a very similar color that we painted so we could be open for our first artist. And after that, we waited and waited. And then when the wallpaper came in, we took everything down and up went the DeGournay. And it's pretty breathtaking.
Yeah, it's spectacular. What is the business model to work with Sue to build a collection?
What's the business model to work for my collection?
No, to work with you to build a collection for somebody else.
Oh, well, come in and talk to us. And there's really no business model. It's really a relationship. And so what we want to do is we don't have like a price to do that. What we do is we start what hopes to be a friendship, and we try to give you examples of things that you might not know that you like. If you like things, we will look for them. So as an art consultant, what we do for people is we not only discuss works that we might already possess, but we will also go out and look for works from our contacts. We can bid in auctions for you. There's a whole host of things that we can do for the client, and a lot of times we'll sort of negotiate too. I mean, it's important, especially if you're not comfortable in the art world. It's important to have someone who is and who can work on your behalf. And the goal would be so that then you too become just as comfortable.
And we have a couple of people asking where the guest house is located, and it's in the Central West End here in St. Louis. Susan, I think those are all the questions that we have for tonight. I want to thank you so much. This was so much fun. And I look forward to seeing you in person again.
Oh my gosh, I know. And my outfit thanks you. And it's so nice to have makeup on, and
I know it is.
Almost have visitors here. So it's great.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.